Okay, in this video we're going to be altering our weapon base to use a data table. So that's going to be kind of like our baseline for several different rifles. So for example, actually I can just show you. So what a data table is a pretty much a structure of a structure. I guess it can be explained that way. So if we go to blueprints, structure, I'm just going to leave that name as is. I'm going to add two variables. First one's going to be, we'll do weapon name. Second one's going to be weapon mesh. I want to change the name to a string and the mesh to a how do you spell skeletal? There we go. Skeletal mesh, and yeah, it could just be class reference. Save it. Now I'm going to right click, go to miscellaneous, data table, new user define struct. So here's our data table, and we open it up. You can see it has weapon name and the weapon mesh, and they're all kind of set differently. And we can create several different listings of these that we can grab by the row name, because this row name is essentially kind of like a key. So if we wanted to access, let's say, new row 2, our key would be new row 2. So that's what we're going to be making, except we're going to be doing that in C++ instead. Yeah, so that's deleted. Now we head over to our weapon base, and we can create our little structure here. So it's going to be a U struct. So U struct blueprint type, then struct, call this F weapon data, and it's going to derive from the what is it? It's like F row, F table row base, something like that. We can actually go ahead and include the data table to begin with, so include, it's off of the engine data table. Oh, maybe that'll let us see it. F table row base. Alright, generated body. And now we can add our variables. So I'm going to be doing a bunch of these. Well, not a bunch, but it can be U property. And we're going to use a skeletal mesh. So U skeletal mesh. Call this weapon mesh. Another one. It's going to be an F string. So weapon name. And for now, we're just, no, we can add another one. It's going to be the same thing as this, our fire animation, like so. Now I'm simply going to remove the edit anywhere property for the mesh component and completely remove the fire animation variable. So I'm going to, for now, comment this out. And we are good to go there. We can go ahead and build. Actually, one more thing. Oops. U property, edit anywhere. We're going to do a F weapon data. Call it weapon data. So this is going to be pretty much our data table. Or no, it's going to be class U data table. Sorry. Weapon data table. When we get a reference to it, we'll be doing that. What I just did. Alrighty. So head back to Unreal Engine. We have our weapon base. So we can right click again. Go to miscellaneous, data table. And now when we type in weapon, you'll see we have weapon data. So let's call this dt underscore weapon data for weapon table. And you'll see we have weapon mesh, weapon name, and fire animation just like we have here. So this is how we're going to read off it. So first off, we're going to make a new row, and we're going to give it the row name / key. So I'm going to call this one AR-15, since that's going to be the first actual weapon we end up making. So that's for the weapon mesh. It's going to be the skeletal mesh for the AR-4, and the fire animation. So BCG cycle. Now as for weapon name, we don't really have any use for this, but we're going to go ahead and set it anyways. And we are done with that. So now we can save it. Come back here. I'm going to clear the log and come back to the CPP, and we can begin setting it up. Oh, also on the weapon base, it should not actually be seeing. Oh well, that shouldn't show anything when we play it. No, it does. Not sure why. Maybe if I need to refresh it. No. Well, we'll deal with it, because we'll be able to test with it, because we will know that it doesn't have any fire animation. Like I'm left clicking right now, as you can see, and there's no fire animation. So we're just going to go off of that. So our weapon base, the weapon data table, we go ahead and select the data table we have, go ahead and save it, and head back over to our CPP file. Now here's where we kind of want to set everything. So first off, let's check if weapon data table is valid. So if weapon data table, so we're good to go there. Now we need to create essentially a pointer to this. So f weapon data equals weapon data table, find row, then it's a template, so the template's going to be our f weapon data, and you'll see it takes in 3 parameters. First one, the row name, which was that key, so in our case it was AR-15, so f name AR-15. Next is a context string. You can just do const f string AR-15 DT for data table, and then warn if the row is missing, which I want to do, so I'm going to do true. Alright, going to go ahead and build, and we can actually store this in our header, so I'm going to copy it. Alright, I guess we cannot do that inside of there, so let's do a new, we're going to do static const actually I can just copy this, f string p string, and just set it equal to that. Alright, does that fix it? It seems to. Okay, which it does. So now, let's see, we can go ahead and, for now we're just going to go off this. So f weapon, wait no, if weapon data, we're going to set the mesh, so mesh component, set skeletal mesh, and what mesh are we going to set? We're going to set weapon data weapon mesh. So if you see here, weapon data, if we look at everything, we have our 3 variables, so our weapon mesh, our weapon name, and our fire animation. So we're going to go off of that, and in our fire, we're going to read from that as well. So we're going to need another check, so if, actually we need to move weapon data to our header real quick. You can do it right below our data table. If weapon data we're going to replace our fire animation with weapon data, fire animation. Let's go ahead and build. Alright, got an error on the header, which I forgot the semicolon. And this is kind of what we're going to be doing with our magazines and stuff like that as well. So we're going to really be expanding on this in future videos. Alright, so we're set up. Let's go to our output log to see if we have any errors. Alright, no errors. There's our weapon, and we should be seeing the fire animation now. So when I left click, yep, as you can see, the bolt carrier group is going back and forth, as well as the flap is open. Alright, so now we have our data table set up. So what we've done is, in our weapon base, we went ahead and created a weapon data table. This is where we're going to be continually, well, what we're going to continually be growing. And for now, we've only added 3 things, just the mesh that we want to use, the weapon name, as well as the fire animation. So when we shoot, we want just the only thing we want to see is just the bolt carrier group cycling back and forth. The actual recoil, we eventually will be moving to the character. So from there, we went ahead and created a U property to allow us to set what data table we want to use in the editor. And in the editor, we simply set that data table, and we created a new row, and we named it with the key / row name AR15. Now this has these, we just filled it out, so we have our fire animation, our weapon name, and our weapon mesh. Nothing really big there. If we had an AS val, actually, why not do that? Because we're going to eventually do that anyways. So new row, row name AS val. Let's give it the val y. Weapon name as val. I don't have an animation actually, so go ahead and save. And for now, I'm going to actually just do a check. So if weapon data and the fire animation is valid, so it's checking weapon data first. So the only way this can run is if weapon data is valid, so we will not crash for this check. So I'm just going to go ahead and build. I don't want to build actually. I want to change the key / row to AS val. Now this should change it, so we are now having the mesh for the AS val, where, screw it, you'll see it. Right. And here it is. So as you can see, pretty much that's how we can control everything. So I'm going to have it, my idea here is have each little row that we have completely filled out. So let's say we wanted to spawn the AR. All we do is simply get the row for the AR. Same thing for any other weapon. And this will allow us to control and have access to all the little details we want. And we can change them right inside the engine very easily, or we can even export it out to a file and edit it externally. And if we wanted to, just re-import later. So this is going to be what we're primarily going to probably be working with in the next upcoming videos. I'm thinking the next video might be where we get started on making a magazine, just so we have something, so we can have like a way to control ammo, because I want to have kind of like Escape from Tarkov, but not that in depth. So you're going to have the weapon, the magazine, and then the actual ammo themselves. So the weapons will have 1 or 2. I might make like another variation for the AR-15 magazine in Blender. So as right now it's just the normal standard still magazines. I might try to make a PMag, so that way we can have more than 1 compatible magazine to show you how to do that, as well as 2 to maybe 3 different ammo types for both rifles. So one might be something, let's just say we'll have, if we end up going with attachments, we could have a subsonic round. That would deal much less damage. Or to keep it simple as well, we could just have just 2. One subsonic, and one supersonic. Doesn't really, I don't know. That's later in the road, but you can kind of see where I'm going at with data tables and what their uses are. This is actually my first time tinkering with them, so I'll just see in the next one when we expand on it.